I really don't appreciate the censoring because, like, we're nothing without each other. We got to have conversations to be able to build, you know?
Right. The point that I brought up with Clockson is that if you were to just remove me off the table, do we necessarily have enough of the other things to feed the global population?
So you're saying for someone who meditates, it could actually physically help their physical health, like by meditating?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Like if you have.
For me, it's like letting go has probably been the best thing that's ever happened to me, because instead of me looking for the guru, I end up finding the guru in me.
It's going to be a byproduct of helping everyone else. Because when you help yourself, you're able to help other people. We're able to build together.
It's going to feel like, dang, I just got to this new level, and now I got to deal with this, now I got to deal with this, and it's going to keep stacking on constantly. Use that as your pillar of strength to be like, wow, since these challenges are getting stronger, it must mean I'm getting stronger. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there, because the universe only gives you what you're prepared to handle. So even if something feels like it's impossible, it's only impossible in your mind.
And so a lot of the important things that you guys want to realize when building is that no matter how grand the idea is, no matter how many people you have, it has to always start from yourself. Because if you don't get yourself right, you're not going to be able to build with somebody else.
See, that's because everybody know that, you know, the government coming after people when you talk too much.
Yeah. I mean, if nobody talks about it, then I mean, you know, it's gonna stay the same.
You know, Clausen, and I already told you this, but you were the person who inspired me to start writing my book. So I can focus and all of that, but you were the one who showed me in the midst of calamity and confusion and drama and chaos and all that shit, that's where all of your best work, or most of your best work, will come from.
People need dramatic examples to shake them out of apathy, and I can't do that as Bruce Wayne. As a man, I'm flesh and blood. I can be ignored, I can be destroyed, but as a symbol, I can be incorruptible. I can be everlasting. What symbol?
Clocks in.
Clocks in.
What up, Clocks in?
Soul fam, clocks in.
Clocks in.
Clocks in.
Clocks in. My homie.
Clocks.
The Clockson sound like he need to come up.
Clocks in coming up next.
I clocks in.
Yo, Clocks in. Peace to the Universal family. My name is Clockson.
I don't regret this. You know, I used to regret the decisions that I made because I didn't understand where they would put me. But now I'm glad I don't understand. You know, I'm glad that my life is a empty canvas and I get to write whatever I want into that canvas to make it my future, you know?
Welcome to the Clockson Podcast.
Okay. All right. Peace and love to the Universal family. Welcome back to the Clockson Podcast. I'm your host, Clockson. And today we have a very, very special guest with me, y'all. Like, out of all the people I interview, honestly, this is like one of the craziest ones, one of the biggest ones, honestly. So we're just going to get straight into it. This brother right here has inspired me in more ways than one, especially on my journey of knowledge of self. Y'all know I'm officially part of the 5% Nation now. And on that journey, like even before I even 100% decided, I was just doing crazy research, y'all. So we're going to go into all the details, but I want y'all to be humbly welcomed by this brother right here, Saladin Allah. How you doing,
Peace, God. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Before we get into the nitty gritty, just tell the people who you are and like a little bit of your origin story, so we can, you know, kind of find out who you are and your legacy. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man. I mean, I'm still writing the story, so I would say at this particular point in my life, if I had a personal mission statement, I would say that my goal is to inspire, empower, and educate others, primarily youth, because I've been teaching for about 20 years, youth from preschool age up to college age, and being more of a youth advocate and a community organizer. A lot of the work that I do revolves around that. And there's a number of various different things that I do, from being an educator to I've published over 23 books. I've written hundreds of articles. I create animation programs for families to understand maybe difficult or challenging topics that they may not have the proper segue into discussing with their children, such as social justice or relationships. One thing about me is I'm always looking for mediums to be able to learn in order to teach it to others. So, I've always kind of been uncomfortable growing up with kind of pulling out a long list of all of the things that I've done. But as I've gotten older, I've learned to take ownership of that, to be proud of it, because it's not egocentricity, but it's also a part of controlling your own narrative and being able to tell your own story. Because if your story gets in the hands of other people, then you might not have the same sense of integrity or consistency to know that your story is being told in an accurate way. So as we talk a little bit more, I find opportunities to kind of add on about some of the other different things that I've done as well. But I would say at heart, I'm just a student, and I strive to learn things well enough in order to teach it.
Spoken like a true teacher. Okay, so that's where you at now. How did you get there? Like, what was the story? Because that's what I want to know, the journey. How did you reach you said 23 books? What?
Yeah.
So what were you doing like in your 20s, like early 20s, teenagers? What made you even start this path per se?
Man, so I think when we look at things in hindsight, we oftentimes say hindsight is 20/20 because you have a crystal clear perspective when you're looking at things in the past. If you're intuitive enough to recognize certain experiences that kind of give insight into a part of your life purpose. So for example, I always go back to my family dynamics. My parents, my mother was a social psychologist. My father was a tradesman, but he collected African artifacts. Both of them was affiliated with the Black Panthers. So I grew up in a household that advocated a sense of cultural competence and a sense of social justice. Both of my parents were always involved in the community, always had relationships with me and my siblings' peers. And growing up in an environment like that, I learned the importance of love for ourselves, love for our people, and love for the sense of purpose of doing the right thing, regardless to whom or what. So these were like foundational elements in terms of knowledge of self. At that time growing up, I didn't know who the 5% was until I got into like high school. But prior to that, I already was learning a lot of the basic elements of what knowledge of self was all about, what having a sense of self-love and confidence in yourself and in your people was all about, because I was taught that through my parents. Also, my parents were avid readers. At a young age, I always used to take my parents, particularly my mother's books of Khalil Gibran, who's a Lebanese prophet. And I used to love reading his books. I still have some of his books to this day. And it felt as though I was literally writing those words, the way in which he articulated things. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized that he was born on the same exact day as me. So we shared that sense of commonality. My grandmother was an avid reader. She studied Hebrew. I have books from her still to this day about the power of thought, mind power. She studied various different things that was taught to me as a child that I didn't see at the time. But as I evolved, I began to look back at those things and see that these were seedlings in terms of my growth and development.
It's like the template. Okay. When were you born, if you don't mind me asking?
Niagara Falls, New York.
When?
1975, January 6th.
January 6th. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Right.
Yeah.
I got you.
So when I got to second grade, me and 3 of my classmates published a book called The Runaway Pizza. And it's something that my second grade teacher encouraged us 3 to do, because our teacher, Mrs. Smith, saw that we had a sense of attraction for literature at that early age. So that was second grade. right?
Damn.
I go through primary school. By the time I get to middle school, I was always writing, and reading.
What?
And my peers used to ask me to write love letters for them so they can get girls. So I used to do that, right? Because they felt that I had a way with words at that early age.
Yeah, I see.
By the time I got to high school, I started to write a little bit more. I write poetry and things along those lines. And then I consistently began to develop that kind of craftsmanship just growing up. When I went to college and I studied in college, that's where I actually met my enlightener and got formally introduced to the 5%. I was informally introduced to the 5% through hip hop back in high school, and that goes back to the 80s. I didn't really know much about the culture in depth, but I was exposed to it just through some of the elements of some of the hip hop artists such as Rakim, Poor Righteous Teachers, Brand Nubian, King Son, Lakim Shabazz. A lot of these artists were either 5% or affiliated with the 5%. So they always would infuse their lyrics with hip hop or 5% language and lingo. Some of my peers that I went to high school with became members of the Nation of Islam. So I began to get exposed to Islam through my peers. But I never felt comfortable joining that religion. And I always had a sense of individuality, or I was always original in a sense where I didn't fit a mold where I would wear a suit and have my hair cut a certain type of way. I was never comfortable with any of that. So when I found out about the 5% that actually used some of the teachings of the Nation of Islam, meaning our 120 lessons or parts of the Supreme Wisdom book, but they still maintain a sense of originality, that was a little bit more attractive to me. So like I said, it wasn't until I got to college that I actually met my enlightener, and I went to Central State University, which is a HBCU in Wilberforce, Ohio.
Okay.
And I met my enlightener in 1994, the spring of 1994, and I went in the study. He, walked me through learning my lessons, 120 degrees, and I finally knowledged 120 on September 30th, 1995. And from there, I've been living this culture since 1995. I've been living this culture longer than I've actually been alive.
Damn, that's powerful, right? Dang, that's powerful. Because a lot of people, they miss out on the whole, like, your background, the template. You had that template to be like, you know what, I could do it. You know what I'm saying? Writing books at that age, just the foundation. Your foundation was straight. So that's what propelled.
So another side note, once I left college, I started to write articles for different publications internationally and nationally around social commentary. I would write articles about the Black family, about religion, about relationships, about politics. I'll write about anything that I'm researching because I was always studying, just like I'm always studying now, and I always had something to say. So I began to write a lot of different articles. And then from there, I started a prison correspondence project along with starting after school programs. So I would say from 1995, once I finished Knowledge in 120, my growth was exponential, and there's a lot of things that I've done just in this short period of time that I've been on the planet that most people won't even do in their entire lifetime.
Oh, yes, that's exactly. And that's what I want to go into, brother. Like, you got a whole school you doing. That's what we're gonna get into all that, because I don't even think you know how many lives you've actually changed with the work that you do. I don't think you really know. But man, we're gonna get into it. But before we get into your school, I want to talk to them a little bit about how we met and my background and how your story actually fits into my upcoming into the nation, So like most people know, I grew up I guess traditional Orthodox Muslim. So I had certain disciplines already, just, what I'm saying, going to the mosque Friday, all that stuff, right? I think about 3 years ago, 2-3 years ago, I met my enlightener, but I didn't know he was a part of the nation yet. I was just following him on YouTube and whatnot, right? Watching his videos. He's a vegan bodybuilder, right? His name is Universal Adam. right? So he's been a part of the nation for a while, but I didn't know that. So I was just studying him because I wanted to get bulky, right? And so I like what he was saying. And a lot of like you said earlier, before you even got the knowledge, you still had some of the principles. You was learning some of the principles within it, even though you weren't a part of it. So that's how I was with me. I was learning it, but I didn't really know what he was about. I didn't even know about the nation until one day I randomly saw a video on social media about it was this Wu-Tang TV show, Wu-Tang American Saga. And I saw that clip where RZA was getting asked, like, what's today's mathematics? And he was like, oh, Build Destroy. I was like, what is this? So I think that was the spark. Then after that, I was just like on my journey of just like, okay, I heard about it, but still in the background, right? Then one day, my enlightener said on one of his videos, y'all know the culture I'm a part of, the 5% Nation. I'm like, the 5% Nation? What is that? So I started doing research. And as soon as I started doing research, your videos came up. And I'm not gonna lie, I've done a lot of extensive research on different channels and stuff, but like no one has quite broke it down to the simplistic point as you have, brother. Like the way you break it down, it's easy to digest, it's easy to understand. So I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be my next move. So through your videos, me watching like the you got a whole playlist up of the basics, you know, the knowledge, 1 through 9. And you go over some of the lessons, you go over the history. I'm like, dang. So your videos have really helped me get to the point where I 100% decided to take this lifestyle for my own, and now I'm part of the nation. So
wow,
I appreciate everything you do. That's why when I met you, we met at Leimert Park, right?
Yep.
We met, and I was like, whoa, Saladin, what? Because you don't know, brother. You have helped me so much. I just want to humbly say thank you.
Man, you know what? I appreciate that. Because a lot of times you may not know the value of what it is that you do, because you just do it. You know what I'm saying? You do it definitely with the intention of striving to inspire and empower and educate others. But I just appreciate having the opportunity to hear it. You know what I'm saying?
I'm not the only one either. I'm sure you touched many. Like even when I mentioned your name to other guys, it's like, Saladin, really? You've touched a lot of people, man, all over the world. So let's go.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, let's go into it though. The school. How did you form that? What was your concept of that going forward? Like you wanted to teach people in that area, and you had this whole. How did that come along? The school itself.
Yeah. So over the years, like I've done a variety of different things. If I wanted to share a piece of content every single day for the next 5 years, every single day, I can literally share something that I've done actually every day for the next 5 years without repeating anything. That's how much work that I've done, you know, in regards to whether it's youth advocacy or anything dealing with community outreach. I got to a certain point where I felt the need to kind of centralize a lot of the things that I do. And the creation of the Atlanta School for Gifted Youngsters was just a combination of all of the work that I've done, whether it was summer camp programs or writing programs for youth, or after school programs, or teaching preschool, or creating animation, writing. I wanted to create a central location where I can make it accessible to children as young as possible. So my Atlanta School for Gifted Youngsters is an early childhood learning center that I established within the last couple of years. I got licensed to open it at the close of 2022.
You have a physical spot now too, huh?
Yeah, I'm sitting in it right now.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, then.
So I have 4 students right now, and it's going excellent. You know, I have an opportunity to teach them my curriculum, which is not beholden to anyone over me, because this is my institution, and it's the way that I decide to teach children based upon all of my life experience. So the things that people see me do that may be accessible to them at their older age, I find creative ways to be able to teach it to younger people. between the ages of 3 and actually 6 years old. So for example, the other day, we went on like a 3-hour nature hike here in my area. And in that hike, we were researching some of the plant life in this area, the uses of some of the plant life, the medicines that you can use, some of the plant life that you shouldn't eat or touch. We were looking at different type of insects and animal life. So, a true teacher can turn any environment into a classroom, and that's ultimately what alchemy is. And a lot of times in Western society, we have a very segregated approach towards what education is. So, for example, you go to a class that's mathematics. There's a totally separate class that's English or social studies. And children are growing up thinking that these are separate disciplines instead of realizing that these are all elements of knowledge of self. They're all intersectional. They're all related. And because a lot of times children are not taught from that perspective, they may tend to have a segregated perspective.
Oh, I like this, but I don't like that. I don't like math, but history is cool. And
not realizing that you need math for history. Just like there's a historical approach towards mathematics, which also means English is incorporated into that. And they're all one. They're all related, but they're not being taught that, So when you look at early childhood, I wanted to focus primarily on early childhood because you're working on constructing the brain architecture of children and setting them on not just an academic trajectory, but you're also setting them on a trajectory of knowledge of self by exposing them to some of the things that I'm sharing right now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of children that walk around in their own environment and they don't even know the uses of different plants that are around them.
That's 100%.
And their healing properties. That's basic knowledge that should be taught to children. Or how to read labels on food items that you buy from the store. There's just basic things that children aren't being taught. And that is how my school is orientated, to teach them living mathematics, so that as they grow and they get exposed to other different things, that they're on the proper footing in terms of being critical thinkers when they attend this world, and how to process things and unpack things from the proper perspective of having knowledge as their foundation.
I got to visit your school, brother. I got to visit. Yeah. I got to pull up.
And it's called the Atlanta School for Gifted Youngsters because I based the concept on Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters.
Okay. So you are Professor X. That's who you are.
Yeah.
You don't know how cool that is. You really don't know how cool that is. What?
So you notice the way he set his school up, it was a sanctuary for gifted youngsters, and he would have the elders strive to locate and mentor the younger mutants on how to actually control and utilize their powers. So I do the exact same thing. I set this school up, but I have an extensive network of people who are gifted all over the world, such as yourself and many others. And because of that network, the children that I teach also have access to that network. So they can learn how to utilize their powers.
You a real life superhero. That's great. I didn't know that you based it off of that. I just your cool points just went up even more.
Yeah.
What? I got a question for you. Do you see yourself as a revolutionary? Because you are. You really are.
I see myself more as a solutionary.
Okay, solutionary.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay.
But some people may see me as revolutionary. Some people may see me a lot of different ways, but I see myself more as a solutionary, somebody that strives to take a very practical approach towards addressing things that we see so that we can bring more beauty into this world, as opposed to compounding the things we see that's broken or being apathetic,
Everything you're saying right now, I can clip this. This is all juicy. like, man, I know I'm getting a lot of wisdom from this, and this is really why I want to do this, not only for the people, but like I know it's a lot I can learn from you too. It's like because even when I was learning from you, it's like you were inspiring me in a way as well. Like I want to also teach the people as well. Like I don't know if you know, but I got a book out. I think I told you. I got my first book out now, so I'm kind of like on that journey as well of trying to teach the people my knowledge and my wisdom and my understanding. So any type of advice and wisdom that I can get from just that journey itself is like.
And I would say, like you said, you want to, but you are. And you said you're trying, but you're not trying. You're actually doing it.
I appreciate that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's not easy for sure. You know, I could be doing so many other things, but it's like, nah, I want to do what's right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And plus you're young. How old are you again, bro?
23.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So like when I was your age, I wasn't doing what you're doing right now. So your generation Z?
Yeah.
Okay. Your generation is like you represent the exponential growth of our people. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Because you're doing a lot of things that a lot of our generation wasn't doing at your age, and we didn't have access to certain resources as well. You know what I'm saying? So that can go both ways. You know, that sword could cut both ways, because you see brothers and sisters in your generation that are on par with you in terms of doing a lot of that type of productive work for our people and for the human family as a whole. But then on the flip side, you also see a lot of the generation being easily led in the wrong direction and made other than themselves.
Yeah.
You know, still striving to find themselves in this space of opportunity. You know, so you're a pioneer in that sense, and you are a leader amongst your generation. And you know, I love seeing the type of work that you're doing. That's why I like hanging around younger people anyway. I don't really have a lot of company with people that's my peer group or older. The only people that I really hang around with that are my peer group or older are those who actually have a relationship with younger people. If they don't, you probably won't see me around them or really investing too much time around them because there's no evidence of growth.
No evidence of growth.
There's no evidence of growth. You represent evidence of growth. The younger generation represents evidence of growth. If you have no relationship with the younger generation, then you have no evidence of growth. You're basically waiting to expire. You're waiting to die.
That's deep. That's deep.
You know what I'm saying?
Then. All right, let's go into this then. Because I'm sure people are watching this like, yeah, this is cool, but what does he keep saying my knowledge of self? For the people that just have absolutely no idea. Let's go into it. Because I know I have my journey and I try my best to express this, but I want the Grandmaster Guru to break this down. You know what I'm saying?
Well, we got to get him on here or her on here.
Nah, you the guru, man. Come on. Break down what is like 5% and what is knowledge of self. What does that even mean?
Well, there's a lot of different ways I could approach this, but I'm gonna break it down this way, just for your listening and viewership. Most people believe that they are born on a specific day, and when they take that first breath of life, that represents their entrance into this physical reality. They believe that they begin on that birth date. The reality of it is you are incarnated consciousness in this form. Consciousness was born into that form on that specific day. But the consciousness itself, the intelligence, the supreme intelligence, the mind that is within the body has no said birth record and has always existed. When you look at your parents, all of us went through 3 different phases as consciousness to become a physical form. The same way you look at gas, liquids, and solids, we all went through those particular phases before we were born into this particular form. When our parents got together, we went from a gas or oxygen and breath into a liquid form that took 9 months in order to become solid. Once that solid form became a child, we were born into this world. So we went through those phases of a gas, a liquid, and a solid. Most people just identify with their solid form or their liquid form. And when I say the liquid form, I'm talking about that part of us which represents the emotional aspect of who we are. Because you look at our central nervous system, which is connected to all of our various different body organs and regulates our body fluids. How we physically feel is directly connected to our nervous system. And a lot of people primarily only identify with their form, their body, as well as how they feel about things. A lot of people don't identify with the consciousness that is within the form. When you look at our ancient traditions and a lot of our indigenous teachings, we always had various different techniques that we taught in order for the mind to separate from the matter, or the mind to manage or master the matter. When you look at the various different things that monks in Tibet do, that show you that their mind is stronger than the matter, or their mind is over their physical form, it's showing you that. When you look at fasting or yoga or some of these other various different techniques that we've taught traditionally, they were specifically utilized in order for us to master the form. And these are ancient traditions and teachings that we've had. The West don't teach that. The West is not invested in looking at the mind over matter.
When they say self, they're talking about this.
Yeah.
They're talking about the
Most people just identify with the form, you know? So this is my hat right here. It's clear that this belongs to me and it's mine. This shirt is mine as well. It belongs to me. And you can see this, the distinction that it's not me, it's mine. It belongs to me. This is also my hand. This belongs to me. So what am I ultimately? Because these are my hands. You could say the same thing with my voice. My voice is mine. It's my voice, but it's not me. So greater is thee that is within us than my voice, my hands, my hat, my shirt. Most people don't make that type of distinction. Whoa. And when you look at a lot of the traditions of the Buddhists and they talk about being able to separate yourself from the physical world and to shun yourself from the materialism in this world and everything, it's teaching people to identify with the mind over the matter.
The art of detachment. Yeah, I've heard of it.
Exactly. And a lot of us don't learn any of that. We are completely attached to the form. When you see a baby, when that consciousness is incarnated into that baby's form, when you look at a baby, you can see a baby using this form and realizing that this is new, that this consciousness is in this body. And that baby has to learn how to attend the world and how to express itself through the 5 senses that come along with this form. That is no different than buying a new vehicle and sitting inside of that vehicle and trying out the radio and turning this on and sitting inside of it. Babies do the exact same thing in this physical form. So when I say knowledge of self, I'm talking about identifying the consciousness that is within the form, realizing that greater is thee, or that which is within us, than what we are so attached to, whether that is our name, whether that is our voice, whether it is our job or our profession or our career, whether that is the money we got.
We are beyond all those things.
That shows you that that's not you. It's a part of you. Because you could lose that money, you could lose your voice, but that don't mean that you're lost. You're still here. You could lose physically a limb, but you're still here. So greater is you that is within you than what most people are attached to in terms of this form. So I would say that's like the basic foundation of knowledge of self. And people who are Christians, it tells you right there in the Bible that in the beginning was a word, and the word was with God, and the word was God, and the word became flesh. Or you're made in the image and the likeness of God. It tells you all of that right in the Bible. Genesis is what genes is. That's what Genesis is. You separate the words, genes is. Genes are a secret code or a writing. It's DNA. So what we consider to be God or supreme intelligence or deity or whatever you want to call that, that is encoded within your very DNA. That's your true Genesis. That's what genes actually is. But most people look at things in a very segregated way. They identify with everything else outside of them. And that's a very flawed perspective to have because it's a limitation.
Big time.
It's
That's why I'm so glad you broke it down like that. Because like after anyone hearing that, when they hear that breakdown, and then when they hear somebody like me or you say peace, God, it don't sound so foreign. Because normally you say that, what do you mean peace, God? Are you calling yourself the Almighty Creator? What? Yeah. But it's like when you can recognize that God is within us, and even the concept of God isn't some mystery.
And that's what namaste means too. Namaste means the God in me is greeting the God or the deity in you. You're acknowledging that. You know? So that's why we come in peace, because we're speaking to the essence of who we actually are. And that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the essence of who we are. Not just all of the various different layers that we choose to identify with and oftentimes limit ourselves to, but the essence of who we are. And that's really the true source of knowledge of self. Knowledge comes from the Latin root know, or it means sire, which means to know. That's also related to science, because sire means to know. That's where science comes from. So you really have to be a scientist of life. You have to really study yourself. And that's what knowledge of self is ultimately about. To start with realizing that you are consciousness within the form, that your brain is a repository of thought. And this physical vehicle is the conduit of your consciousness. And from there, it is a part of your life's work to travel along a trajectory to learn as much as you can about fully expressing the essence of who you actually are. Which means you have to study, you know, yourself. You know, what things are you kind of like pissed off about? Or why are you pissed off about certain things? You know, what things do you like and what things do you not like? You have to experience different things to kind of find out different aspects of who you are. You know, a lot of people, like I said, because they're taught to identify with limited aspects of who they are, it's also incorporated into their language. So all of us with that supreme intelligence or that supreme consciousness, all of us have natural things that we do that come easy to us. And that is one of the parts of the gifts that we've been given.
The superpowers.
Right? That come easy. The things that come difficult, that can also be a gift that we just have to work at that though. But most people don't see it like that. They just think what I can do good or easy and what I like is what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's still a limitation. You know, your gifts come in many different ways. Some people may look at me and think that I might be a gifted speaker or that I'm gifted to do this, that, and the third. Some of it is not natural to me. I've had to work consistently in order to do certain things. But I know people and I have relationships with people that are much more gifted naturally than I am. You know what I'm saying? So that's also something that's important to understand, that when you have that infinite potential, there is no limitation to that. And there are examples around us all the time of people being able to express themselves beyond that physical capacity, whether that is a person that's a double amputee, that's a mountain climber, or a person that's blind, that's able to paint, you know, or various different things. But it's important to recognize that anything we see as difficult or a limitation is just something that we have to work at in order to bring balance to the infinite potential that exists within us.
Gotcha. So knowledge of self, in a sense, is actually in multiple cultures and ways of life. not just in the
Absolutely.
5% nation. Okay.
Absolutely. We just have our own unique approach towards what knowledge of self is. But you see it in all different societies and all different cultures around the world.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So let's break down the 5% way then. So what's the 5% nation?
Well, one of the formalized ways that we learn knowledge of self is we learn through an enlightener, somebody who has walked and lived this culture that is capable of actually teaching us about this culture. And a part of that process involves us studying and learning 8 particular parts of our cultural curriculum. So we learn what is known as supreme mathematics, which are 10 principles of life that we learn to identify in nature and incorporate into our lives and align ourselves with. We also learn supreme alphabet, which is different qualities or characteristics that are associated with the various different letters of the alphabet, which also gives us a sense of principles and values that we incorporate into our lives. And then we also learn a set of lessons known as 120, which is 120 lessons that does the exact same thing. The 120 lessons teach us various different things about geography, about history, about sociology, about psychology. So we learn that curriculum, and that becomes the foundation of our cultural worldview. And when we come together with other 5%ers, we share our scientific research around those mathematics, those alphabets, as well as those lessons. So if you hear 5%ers say something like, "Peace, how you see today's mathematics?" What we're talking about is each day or number of that day corresponds to a certain principle. So today will be the 6th. And in our supreme mathematics, 6 represents equality. So it's kind of a way of orientating ourselves to think about these higher principles and values that we subscribe to. And it's not religious, but religious people may do something similar. So you may have a person that's a Muslim, and each day they may read a certain surah to kind of orientate themselves around what they believe in. Same thing with a Christian. They may read certain scriptures and put on what they call the armor of God before they walk outside of their house. And, people do various different things to kind of orientate and center themselves in a positive way within their homes before they go out into this world. So as 5%ers, we utilize our supreme mathematics, our alphabets, as well as our lessons. And we study these particular elements of our culture in order for us to grow and develop and be the type of citizens that become resources in this world. And like I mentioned earlier, to bring some more beauty as opposed to just being apathetic and compounding the things that we see that are actually broken.
You adding on positive energy and said, "Oh, look at this, y'all! Look what's going on here." Like, let's add to the solution. Okay.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
What about the actual 5% itself, though? What does 5% mean? Why are we even called 5%?
Well, when we say 5%, we're just talking about a small percentage of people. So if you were to look at 100% of people, 5% just represents a very minor segment of that population that are orientated a certain way. They share a common worldview. But usually the masses of people are what we refer to as blind, deaf, and dumb. People who are not really critical thinkers. They're easily manipulated and led in the wrong direction. And when you combine 85% and 5%, you still got 10% left. And 10%. The 10% represents those who easily lead people in the wrong direction, who have a capitalistic mindset, who are committed to taking advantage of people so that they can enrich themselves and make people ignorant in the process. So these are the segment of the population that will be likened to the 1% when we had that Occupy Wall Street movement that was actually going on. And these are not just people who are in the bacon industry. These are people who could be in the education field. They could be in the medical or the pharmaceutical field. These are people who could be in the religious field. These are people who are committed to keeping people blind so they can enrich themselves, and to create an environment where people remain ignorant. So as the 5%, we're really charged with the responsibility of being beacons of light amongst the human family members, and to be resources to people who want access to be self-determined, to gain knowledge of self, and to also be a resource to other people. So as the 5%, we're not no missionaries. Like I said, we're not religious or anything. We strive to live a life as righteous as possible. We strive to elevate our consciousness, and we strive to be a resource to other people so that they can do the same.
Sound like a superhero to me. And I love how you pick your choice of words very carefully. It's like you said, a lot of times, like scientists, so we approach things in a mathematical way, but you also say we strive to, meaning we're not perfect people, you know. Even if we have these disciplines and these mathematics, that doesn't mean every single 5%er is the exact same, perfect, upright. Like our brother here is displaying, you know what I'm saying, amazing levels of discipline, you know what I'm saying? So, because I'm only saying this because, like,
Could I add on? Well, I would say the essence of us is perfect.
Okay.
And the physical form, our life experience, we strive to align the form with that inner perfection. So there's a learning process that always goes on, but the essence of us is not mixed, diluted, or tampered with in any form. Because if the essence of you is that supreme intelligence, there is no flaw in that. There is no imperfections in that.
Nah, that's fact. We are
You
God,
know?
right?
So we own that.
Yeah.
So we own that. And that's what allows us to consistently strive for that greatness that exists within us. We don't own imperfection. Because if you own that, you're always going to be lower or lesser than the essence of who you are.
That's the clutch. Yeah.
You know? So if you make mistakes or you do something that you could have done better, you acknowledge that. By acknowledging that greater is thee that is within you than that mistake that you just made, or that flaw that you just did, you know, along this timeline.
Right.
So you acknowledge it, but at the same time, you also acknowledge, I can do better, and I'm gonna strive to do better.
No, that's because I've seen, like, on my journey of, I'm still new. I'm considered a newborn in the nation, but I've seen guys. I'm like, he doesn't really, you know, act like this guy in a way as far as like disciplines. Like, he still drinks and does his other things. It's like, okay, I'm seeing the differences. And even my lightning was telling me, like, not everybody is on the same type of mind frame as you are per se. We are a part of the nation and stuff. It's like, when I found my enlightener, he was a vegan bodybuilder, you know, positive energy, all that. So I took that picture as everybody in the 5% nation is like that.
Yeah.
Necessarily. That make a picture like I thought. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah. You know, everybody is in their own place in terms of their growth and development, you know, and it's important to leave room and to be patient with one another. Because some people are striving to get to certain levels that they establish for themselves in terms of their growth and development. And some people are not. Some people are good where they're at. And you acknowledge that too.
Yeah.
You know, but again, we always have to bear witness to and acknowledge that greater is thee, or that essence of supreme intelligence within us, than what we see in that form. Because if we consistently focus on and fixate on the form, that can be a hindrance or limitation to us being able to reach the higher aspects of who we are. In other words, we could be walking down the street, and because a person is unhoused, or they may be unemployed, or other different things, we may feel like we don't need to listen to them.
Right.
And this person could be an expert in a certain area of our life that we can get some education on, but because we set that limitation, we may not be willing to listen to them. So we got to be, you know, patient, especially with our people in a society where historically we've been made other than ourselves.
Facts.
You know, and I think it was Malcolm that might have said that we have to love our people stronger than we have hate for ourselves.
Malcolm was one of the biggest people that inspired me to become Cloxton. Malcolm was a big inspiration for me, for sure.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. Another reason why I love the 5% Nation too is, like, as soon as I really started adopting the culture, I had a sense of brotherhood. You know, even the guys that aren't necessarily like me and on the same type of striving for the same exact things, we were still able to build. We were still able to come to each other like peace, God, peace. You know what I'm saying? So that right there is like we need more of that, just in general. Us being able to, you know what I'm saying? So it's like,
and that's also goes back to our principles and values, because that builds a code of ethics and a moral compass. So, for example, one of our lessons, the 11th degree in the 1 to 14s, asks, "Have you not heard your word shall be bond, regardless of whom or what?" And the answer is, yes, my word is bond, bond is life, and I'll give my life and my word shall fail. So that meaning from brother to sister, that's a level of expectancy that we should have for one another. That I'm not gonna lie to you or to do devilish men or to steal or strive to manipulate you in any kind of way. That's my word is bond. You know, and many of us may not have that code of ethics that we live by. You know, but the fact that we learn and we memorize this and we recite it to one another, it reinforces that principle, and it creates the type of trust that is necessary for us to be able to establish those type of relationships with one another. So if there's a brother that's a 5% or a sister that's a 5%er that's on the other side of the country, and I've never met them in person, but yet we both subscribe to that lesson, that our word is bond, bond is life, and I give my life before my word shall fail. There is some level of expectancy. It doesn't mean that I just take things on face value. You know, we obviously still get to know each other, but in the process of getting to know each other, at least we have some type of baseline or foundation or some sense of expectancy of what we may or may not do.
A standard.
Equally subscribe to something that is common between us. The same way I assume a Muslim would do with people who subscribe to the pillars of Islam, or you may have certain people who subscribe to different denominations of Christianity, regardless of the different type of churches that they go to. There may be a level of expectancy that they have amongst each other because they are part of that body, you know. So we use this, like I said, as like a foundation. So knowledge is the principle number one in our supreme mathematics. So I meet another 5%er, then I kind of expect them not to lead with what they believe.
Yeah, I got told that a few times, like, Clarkson, don't put the wisdom before the knowledge. I'm like, oh yeah,
or what they feel and all of that other stuff. I'm kind of expecting them to stand on a foundation of knowledge. They're gonna tell me what they know.
Yeah,
because that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah,
you know. That's and we use that as a foundation to get to know each other. You know, and that's just our approach towards rebuilding our relationships with one another, one person at a time. And in building your relationship with one another, you're building your families. You're also building your communities, because your families are the seminal units to your communities, and then your communities is building your neighborhoods. And we just take that particular approach. Other people do things a different way, but that's the way that we do things. And we're youth centric, so we focus on teaching our youth this primarily, so that they can become the type of adults that, you know, are going to be entrusted with this world when we're no longer here.
Facts. Okay, I want to go into one of the reasons why I joined. Like one of the main reasons is like, okay, boom, I knew it was for me, right? It's like, personally, you know, I have this Black Panther, Malcolm X spirit inside of me for my people. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really want to see my people win. You know, and if y'all watch my videos, y'all know I always say the universal family. But at the same time, I'm not blind to the fact that the people that look like me, you know, are suffering. You know, and it's like, when I saw this culture, I'm like, dang, I've never seen any other culture that just, it's not specifically, you know, only for us, but it's like it's like Black people tailored in a way, if you know what I'm saying. Like, it's like, it really uplifts and inspires Black people in general. And that's really what attracted me to it. Of course, the more I learned about it, the more I learned anybody can, quote unquote, be a 5% as long as they go through the rites of passage. But like, it's really like, it focuses on empowering the Black man and woman. Could you talk about that? Because that's like one of the main reasons that attracted me to it in the first place.
Yeah. So I would say any person, it doesn't matter what your complexion looks like, or what your nationality or ethnicity or geographic location. If you're committed to doing right and you want to do right in terms of helping inspire and empower and educate others, and you are already taking steps to do that in some capacity, then you're already informally a 5%er. When you look at people like Bob Marley or Bruce Lee or Chief Sitting Bull, or there's a lot of different people, when you look at the work that they've done and how they educated others and how they inspired and empowered others, they're informal 5%ers. They just didn't go the same formal route that I would have gone.
Y'all heard that? Bruce Lee's a 5%er.
Yeah. Bruce Lee said, if there is a God, he is us.
Ooh.
You know? So different people come to knowledge of self under different circumstances. You know, like you shared, you were inspired, you know. There's other people who may be attracted to the lingo, or some people are attracted to the level of intelligence that they see brothers and sisters expressing. Some people are attracted to it because they see the optimum health benefits that people demonstrate that are a 5%er. So people come to it for various different reasons. You know, the goal ultimately is for all human family members to see the value of knowledge of self, and to recognize that we are the stewards of this planet. And if we're going to see change, we're going to have to be the ones to take responsibility for that change and not play the blame somebody else game in the process. So as a culture, we don't have a hierarchy. There's no leader. There's no one above anybody else. Whether a person has been studying for 5 years or 25 years, your input or your add-on or what you want to share that we need to take away is no more valuable or lesser valuable than anybody else. Everyone has an equal voice. And that's why we build in ciphers, because in a circle, everyone has an equal perspective. No one has a dominant perspective in a cipher. Right. Everyone sees everyone from the same vantage point of view. So a cipher or a circle is 360 degrees. That's understanding equality of that cipher.
Right.
You don't see ciphers in Western society in schools. You see the teacher in a dominant position and the students in a lesser position than them.
Yeah, it's like that in the courtroom too.
And that's
up there. Everybody else is down there.
That's the primary way that information is disseminated in a one-way street. We understand that knowledge is not linear. Knowledge is cyclic, which means a 4-year-old standing in that cipher can receive something as well as share it with the person that's 40 years old standing on the other side of that cipher. No one is more valuable than anyone else, you know, and that is diametrically opposed or very different than what we learn in this society. We learn hierarchy structures because a person went to school and they got 3 doctorate degrees that they must be the most intelligent. But they don't even know how to eat.
Talk to him, brother.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so in terms of learning this culture, there are people who could be classified as Caucasian who are 5%ers. I live right on the Canadian border. And a lot of our brothers and sisters that are over on the Canadian side, their ancestry goes to places like the Philippines, China, Syria, Lebanon, Trinidad, Jamaica, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Mexico. And they're all 5%ers. It doesn't matter your geographic location, your so-called ethnicity, or your so-called nationality. What matters is your consciousness and your connection to not only uplifting your people, but connecting your people to the human families, knowing that we're all one.
We are pro-righteous.
Exactly. Exactly. And if a person, anybody can do devilishment. Anybody, don't matter what you look like or how old you are or your gender or whatever, anybody can do devilishment.
That's a fact.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Well, before we close out, I want to leave the people with some fire gems, especially if they're inspired and they're interested. You know what I'm saying? So, could we run down the 1 through 9 with them and just give them that jewel?
What the supreme mathematics?
Supreme mathematics, yeah. Could we do
So,
that?
So first, like 1 through 9 in a cipher or 1 through 9 in a 0 are really Arabic numerals. You know what I'm saying? They're not English. And that's funny because you have some people who are very anti-Islamic, and it's like, well, every paycheck you get from your job, you got Arabic numerals that you take into the bank in order to cash and get your money. And those are Muslims that made up those numerals, you know. But yeah, so 1 through 9, 1 represents knowledge, and the reason it represents knowledge is because that's ultimately the foundation. Knowledge is to know. It's also consciousness. It's also awareness, and you can't do nothing without consciousness or awareness or without knowing first.
That's a fact.
And knowing always supersedes belief. I know somebody and some people don't want to accept that, but you can believe that you Jay-Z all day, but when you go and check your bank account, you know that you ain't Jay-Z. You can believe you Beyonce all day, but when you go out in them streets and people walking right past you, you know that you ain't Beyonce. So knowledge is the foundation, right? The number 2 represents wisdom, because wisdom is right discernment or judgment. You can't judge things rightly if you don't know nothing first. You got to know something first before you make wise decisions. So 1 comes before 2, just like knowledge comes before wisdom. And if people don't believe what I'm saying, go out there tomorrow and make as many decisions as possible without knowing something first, and be honest about how wise those decisions were, because you're going to find out real quick that they were foolish, and you're going to be forced to go back to the foundation to realize, like, dang, now I know.
Yep, knowledge before the wisdom.
So what I'm sharing right now is just basic life principles and common sense. This ain't nothing that nobody made up.
Facts.
It's just plain observation of nature, right? And if people live long enough, they'll realize the value of what it is that we share. So knowledge is number 1, wisdom is number 2, and then 3 is understanding. Understanding is to have a clear mental picture, or to see things for what they are, not what they appear to be. You can only see things clearly if, number 1, you had knowledge or you were aware, and number 2, you made a wise decision. Then you can see things clearly for what they are. You're either going to see things clearly and look back and be like, okay, I made a wise decision, or you're going to look back and see that you did things backwards. Like, damn, I just made a decision and I thought I knew what I was talking about. Now I got to go back and do things a proper way. So understanding is to see things. It's a combination of knowledge and wisdom.
Now I understand. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? The same way that understanding is symbolic to a child, which is a combination of a man and a woman, or knowledge and wisdom. Right? When you look at the child is the evidence of both parents.
That's a fact.
So understanding leads you to culture, which is the number 4. Culture is the sum total of all of your people activities. It's your way of life. If you subscribe to a religion, yeah, that could be a part of it. But even if you don't subscribe to a religion and you have a metaphysical view of the world, or you call yourself spiritual, whatever, that's all a part of your culture. How you live is most evident of what your culture actually is. So culture can include your language, but language and communication physically or verbally is a very small part of expressing your way of life. Most of our way of life is expressed non-verbally. It's how we live.
Your ways and actions.
You know what I'm saying? Okay. And culture, again, is a culmination of your understanding, the wise decisions that you made or lack thereof, and your knowledge, what you know. So if you just look at a person, you see their culture or their way of life, you can see what they understand and what they don't understand without them saying nothing. You can see how wise they are or if they're not that wise. And you can also see what they actually know. All of that is a part of their culture or their way of life. The next principle in mathematics is 5. That's power. That also is an indication of their culture, their understanding, their wisdom, and their knowledge. Because power is influence.
Okay.
So all of the things that I'm saying, you can just look at people, and if they have some level of influence, you can just look at their way of life. Well, where is that influence coming from? Okay, I can see that it's coming from there because that's their understanding. That's their lack of wisdom or their wisdom, and that is their knowledge. You can just simply look at people. So, for example, you can look at power in terms of influence when it comes to people who are your public officials in your municipality.
Okay.
Because politicians, that's all they actually do.
What about the celebrities?
Yeah, or celebrities too.
Okay.
Right? Their influence. Like, where is their power dynamic? Where is their power base? That power is a culmination of their culture, their understanding, their wisdom, and their knowledge. So if you want to see what their power base is, look at their culture, look at their way of life. Right? So now, peep this. Some people may look at certain celebrities, and you see it on TikTok all the damn time.
Yeah.
You look at some people and you look at their influence, and you see these TikTok videos talking about their influence is they're promoting Satanism.
Right.
Or they're promoting, devil worship, and they're doing all of this, that, and the third, right? And this is what people will put on TikTok. And they say that's their power of influence. But then when you look at these people's culture, right? You look at their way of life and it's like, I don't really know. But then when you look at their understanding, you're like, they really don't understand much about Satanism and devil worship. And then you look at their wisdom and you watch interviews and you see things that they're involved in, you're like, okay, well, they're not really making too many wise decisions. And then when it goes down to their knowledge, it's like, okay, they really don't know much about that. This person on TikTok is making that shit up.
Wow. So you can always track it back.
You can always take it back to the foundation. But then there's some people, you can do that same thing and you can say, okay, I can tell that they know more than what they're actually sharing.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay. That's the power.
And here's the thing. Power leads to equality. It should lead to equality or equity because 6 represents equality. So power and those dynamics should yield equality if it's fair, because that's what equality represents. Equity, fairness, homeostasis, balance, all of those various different qualities.
The yin and the yang.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's where true power should lead. So when you look at people and you say, oh, they're doing this, that, and the third, and they got this kind of influence, when you look at what is sustainable, because that's what equality is. When you show the yin and yang, that represents sustainability. That represents infinity or eternity. That's sustainable. That's why equality is the best approach. It's equitable. It's the most sustainable approach. If you're striving to take advantage of people, that's lopsided. It's only going to be a matter of time before the pendulum swings to the opposite direction. When you look at societies that are tyrannical, it's only a matter of time before a revolutionary comes about to topple that tyranny, because it's not equality. That's not sustainable. You can't oppress people forever. You know? it's short-sighted. People think that they could actually do things like that because they don't understand what real power is about. Power should yield equality. It should be something that is equitable to bring balance, homeostasis, and sustainability, because that's ultimately the godliest expression. So 6 or represents equality, but then it also should yield what God represents, good orderly direction. So we're getting into the higher aspects of mathematics. The first parts of the mathematics are just all really about a moral code and a code of ethics and standards in terms of how you should approach things. Once you get into power, equality, God, build or destroy, born, and cipher, once you get into those other aspects of mathematics, you're dealing with the expression of the foundation. Because when you're building a home, that foundation is usually unseen.
That could be looked
Everything
at
that you
so many
see
different
that's
ways.
built upon it is visible. That's why you really don't know what people know. And that's why I also said that it's important to be patient with people, not knowing what people actually know. Because they may present a certain type of way, but they may have the type of education that's necessary for your growth and development. But if you're judging them by appearances, you may overlook or undermine that opportunity to grow. So when you go through dealing with the science of equality and learning what's the most sustainable approach or the equitable approach of how to deal with people, places, and things, then you start evolving to the point of expressing that supreme intelligence. That's what God is. And once you get to that point, now you're getting into the higher aspects of dealing with creator and creation. The ability to build as well as destroy, to add on and take away, because you've already established all of the other principles and aligned yourself properly to be in that position to be able to do that. When you look at a lot of the ancient systems that we taught, let's take it back to Kemet. You look at the ancient mystery systems of ancient Kemet, right? And we had to go to school for a very long time, right? I'm in my late 40s right now. I would still be basically in primary school.
Dang.
Based upon what I needed to learn in order to go through those systems of study. The lifespan of our people in that particular part of the planet was vastly different than the lifespan of people who lived in Greece and some of those other different areas. They were going to war, so their lifespan was very short. So these Greeks like Plato, Socrates and stuff, those Greeks that came over and studied under us, they couldn't live long enough to go through all of what they needed to go through in order to learn. Which means they only got bits and pieces and took those bits and pieces back to their people in Greece and was teaching that like it's the whole. So there was a lot left out. And Western society looks at Greeks as if they are Western civilization. They're the highest expression of human development when they're operating off of fragments of what we taught. Fragments, which means there's a lot missing, which is the foundation of how people are taught here in Western society, where they skipping steps. They're skipping steps. So again, go back to just looking at our regular school systems. In our regular school systems, children are not learning really about basic growth and development, things that we learn in traditional societies.
None of that.
Being taught of how to grow food, how to read the environment and the signs and the weather, learning things about their body, practicing techniques on how to abstain from certain things and to master mind over matter. That's basic stuff that we learn in the East. and also in Central Asia or Akibalan or Africa, other different societies. That's basic stuff that we learn. We get over here and we just skipping steps and getting little bits and pieces and fragments, thinking that we have a level of growth and development. You know what I mean? So going back to what I was saying, having a capacity to actually add on and take away, to build or destroy. When you look at the number 8, which represents build or destroy, and turn it sideways, that's a lemon skate. That's a symbol for infinity. When you turn the number 8 sideways or horizontal, that is a symbol for infinity.
Facts.
When it's perpendicular, that represents build or destroy.
And that's my life path number for y'all to know that. 8 is my life path.
Yeah. The ability to add on and take away. Right? But you only have the capacity to genuinely do that if you understand the responsibility of supreme intelligence, if you understand and recognize equity or equality or the most sustainable approach, and you understand the power dynamics before you strive to take something away or add something on. Sure. That goes into power, and you're living a certain way.
It's a responsibility.
Yeah, you live a certain type of way, your culture, and then understanding, wisdom, and knowledge. So all of these are just basically principles in life. And after build or destroy, born, you bring something into existence. And cipher is a 0, and everything goes right back into a cycle. It takes you right back to the foundation, because anything that you create or born is going to take you back to the foundation or the process that you went through in order to bring it into creation. Because if you are doing it in order to bring something more beautiful to this society and to this world, then you're also entrusted with walking somebody through those same steps after you.
Facts.
The only job of a master is to prepare the path for the grandmaster to come behind them. That's the only real job of a master. You're preparing the path for the grandmaster.
Yeah.
You know? So, you know, we strive to live this in the midst of a society that's chaotic, that promotes people that don't think critically about themselves, each other, and the world around them. And it's challenging because, you know, when you're thinking that way and not going along with the status quo and striving to be integral about the decisions that you make, and it's challenging. You know, that's why we say the 5%, because there's not many of us out there that are striving to live like this, you know. That's a fact. And, you know, a lot of people are comfortable with playing the blame somebody else game. And it starts very young.
Yeah, it does.
It starts very young, you know, and that's why I wanted to create the type of space where I can start teaching these children as young as possible, so I can start checking that as early as possible and giving them the options of the healthiest approach towards addressing situations. Now, for example, a child may say something to another child and say, "You made me mad." I would stop right then and there, and we're going to have a discussion about that. Nobody made you do anything. You don't give them that authority or that power or that credit over defining you.
Bingo.
You feel mad. You could acknowledge how you feel, but they didn't make anything, because if they can make it, they can also unmake it. You don't give nobody that responsibility or that power over you. I check that early so I can start giving them the proper language of responsibility. You did this, and when they start understanding that early, they also have an opportunity to grow up and become young adults who are not looking for someone to make them happy.
Right.
Because they know that no one has that capacity. They make themselves happy, and then they can find someone to share in that happiness. A lot of us are not given that language. You know what I'm saying?
No, that's 100% fact. I can say from my experience, me growing up, it's like I guess I always had this urge to seek for the knowledge, but it was hard for me because I didn't really see the greatest examples. So I would say for the teachers out there, if you really want to teach, like this brother's doing, be the greatest example as you possibly can. Because us young people, we're not just trying to hear what everybody's saying. Everybody want to be a teacher. Everybody want to say all this cool stuff. But if you're not, like you said, most of the teaching and the wisdom is nonverbal.
Mm-hmm.
How are you living? What's your ways and actions? Are you living out whatever you're trying to teach me? If so, then yeah, I'll listen. You know, so I would definitely say live by example for sure.
Mm-hmm. So one of my books I wrote is so typically people say when the student is ready, the teacher appears. But I wrote a book and it says when the teacher is ready, the student appears.
Oh, that's bars.
You know?
That's bars. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to have to get some of your books too. I didn't know you wrote 23 books. What?
Mm-hmm.
I just got one right now. I'm like, cool. 23 under the belt. That's a whole nother. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Now, I appreciate you breaking down the mathematics. That was beautifully done, by the way. And I do have one serious question for you, though.
Uh-huh.
So I always ask this for all the guests on my podcast.
Uh-huh.
Out of all your entire life experience, everything you've been through, everything, if you had somebody on here watching right now and you could just tell them one thing that could empower them or just a message you really want to just give this person, it could be 16, 17 age range. What's one message you want to tell that person?
Wow. You said about 16 to 17?
Yeah.
That life is about finding your purpose. That's what I would tell them, that life is about finding your purpose. And ultimately what that means is the gifts that you have to make a contribution to this world, to make it a better place than when you arrived here. Because you have a lot of people who are not living their purpose. They get up and they just work every day. You know, they do a lot of different things that's really not their purpose. And they're not happy. There's no sense of joy in that. When you find your purpose, you don't work a day in your life. You don't work a day in your life. All of the stuff that I do, I don't even see that as work. I get up every day and I'm excited. I never get up like, oh my God, I got to go here. I got to do that. I never get up feeling that way. I always get up excited and thankful for being alive, for having the opportunity to be able to share the things that I'm doing to help empower and inspire and educate other people. I wake up every day like that. And that's because I've found my purpose. And that is a part of what I strive to do, to help others find their purpose as well.
Beautiful, brother. Beautiful, brother. Beautiful. Okay, well, that about wraps up the podcast. I appreciate you for being here. Is there anything you want to tell the people as far as what you have going on and what you got coming next? Like, what are some announcements you want to say to the people?
Man, I'm always doing something. If people wanted to follow me, they can just I have it on the screen. It's at Atlantis Build. They can check me out on Instagram. That's the page for my Atlantis School for Gifted Youngsters. So I consistently update people on the various different things that I'm doing. Also, they can go to my YouTube page and see some videos and stuff that I've posted to get more information on that as well. So yeah, I'm always doing something. So people check me out, they can see some of the work that I do.
Okay, cool. Did you enjoy yourself here? What do you think about the podcast in general? Oh
yeah, absolutely. I appreciate connecting with you, and also doing this to be able to share with your listening audience. I have some people who are watching me right now.
For real?
Yeah. So those of y'all that want to check out his podcast, it's Clocksin.
Yeah, the Clocksin.
So it's at CLOCKSYN at Clocksin.
Yeah.
And you can check out the work that he's doing, and other different podcast episodes that he has of various different people that are sharing some of the things that they're doing.
I appreciate that, brother. I don't want to take too much of your time. I know you're a very busy brother. And I just want to say I appreciate you for coming on here, and just the knowledge of I don't know how many things we touched on.
Yeah.
Man, in this short amount of time. But I appreciate it for sure.
Yeah, G. We could do this again as well. Once we coordinate our schedules, let's definitely do this again. And then
part 2 coming soon.
Yeah, and whenever you get a chance, bro, you got to come out and check me out over here on the East Coast.
I got to come to the school, everything. I plan to go in there definitely next year for sure, 100%.
So it's about to get cold here by October. So if you don't come within the next couple of months, you're probably gonna have to wait until May if you don't want to see no snow.
Okay. Well, I don't mind the snow too much, but yeah, I prefer it to be warm. I got you. I'm gonna hit you up there. But I appreciate you. And this was the Clocks and Podcast, brother.
Okay,
peace and love, y'all.
Peace.